podcast. Hell yeah, brother. Overload, brother.
Beats by @Smoke M2D6.
Welcome to a Seattle Overload episode, unlike any other, where the Seahawks have lost 27-11 to the Chicago Bears. The good news is it was preseason, so it doesn't really matter. However, there are takeaways from this in our immediate reaction where, I mean, I think we think it, it does still matter. And it was upsetting and bad, and it's 5:26 a.m. here, and really, the podcast could be like 2 minutes and we could just be like, well, that was bad and let's burn it. But there are also some stuff we can talk about. And firstly, I guess Geno Smith sucked, right, Griffin? He was terrible. He should be cut. Why don't they go and get Jimmy Garoppolo?
Wrong, sir. I thought he was solid. I do not think he was great. I don't think he was very good. I don't think he was average, and I don't think he was bad. I thought he was good. He made three elite throws, and we can't undersell that. They were downfield, 21 yards. One was like 33, and another one was like 18 or something. It was the third down dig route, 7-step concept, hitches up in the pocket, fires a rocket over. I think they were in man, but it was over like the rat, and he had to elevate it right over his fingers, and he did. Perfect ball, big time throw, and Swain drops it. You gotta catch those. I would like to think Tyler Lockett and Marquise Goodwin bring those down. I think it's fair to think that they would. The throw to Penny Hart got good separation, but it was a beautiful ball. It wasn't underthrown. He didn't have to like come back for it. That's this obvious. I mean, Drew Lock isn't playing. That really sucks for him. It sounds like he's really sick. I don't know if he'll be able to play next week. It really sucks for him.
He said that. Yeah, he said he was really sick.
Yeah, but this is part of the competition. Was like two of the big markers, not the only things, but two of the biggest markers of this competition is who's going to be the first to throw an interception, and then who's going to be the first to hit something deep down the sideline. Obviously, Drew didn't get the chance to prove that he can, because we know he can. But it was really good for Geno's sake and for the offense's sake that he hit that. And then he follows it up, I think, was it the very next play, with an absolutely perfect back shoulder short fade to Derek Young. And Derek Young just can't quite bring it down. I think the defender got a hand in it, but the ball was perfect. Outside of that, Geno did some kind of like nifty, like throwing high and then reading like one of the mesh play. He was reading the flat defender drop and just immediately tossed it, I think, to DJ Dallas, which is like the wheel out of the backfield, like the first read before you get to the crosser. It depends, but I think in that context for mesh it was, and it's like that's exactly what you need to do. Then he had some other drops short. He threw the one stick route behind Penny Hart. It was still catchable, but it was off target, but catchable. And he's got to be accurate there, but we've seen him throw stick routes plenty of times. We know he can be accurate, and he was accurate earlier in the game. On one of the third downs, he throws a perfect strike on a slant, kind of in between the DB and the rat defender. It was cover one, I think. And to K Johnson, K looked good there, and then the penalty brings it back. Geno played clean, I think, for the most part in the underneath, but then he made some big time throws downfield. That other third down dig route that he threw, that was an incompletion. That was like, it was a dig route bending behind a hook defender, and that hook defender got underneath it. And I think Geno, the guy was not open. And I think Geno's placement on the ball shows that he knew it wasn't open, because he put it where if it was going to be touched by anybody, it was only going to be touched by his receiver. So I don't know, we'll know on the tape if that was the best available decision, if anybody was open, if nobody was open. Maybe his best decision was, tucking and running, maybe, and even then he may not have gotten anything. The 3rd and 15 sack, they're well out of field goal range, right? We don't know if it was a coverage sack or not. We don't know if anything was open. Well, it was definitely a sack in the sense the ball was held. but we don't know if anybody was open. If it wasn't open, we would then ask ourselves, what's the next best decision? Try to scramble and make something happen. If it's 3rd and 15, maybe there's some grace you extend him there if you're not in field goal range to begin with. But if it's 2nd and 10 or 1st and 10, do not take a sack there, right? Like I said that last week. And then he didn't take an early down sack except for when he tripped on Travis Homer's foot. And like, how often is that going to happen? So I don't, all in all, I think if the balls get completed that should have been completed that we don't blame him for, what does his stat line look like? I mean, we can do the math. There's like 50 yards there to gain back, if not more, if you want to be a little bit more, what's the word? A little more lenient on him. I mean, maybe, 60, pushing 60 yards. And then what do his yards per attempt look like? You give him back that 1 3rd down conversion. Like Geno played what the quarterback was supposed to do for the most part. He was not perfect, but I think he made enough plays to where if they didn't have 5 drops, and if they didn't have 5 penalties, setting up 2nd and 20s or 3rd and 20s or whatever it was, like the other positive, if we're looking for positives, the actual blocking from the offensive line was really good in pass protection. Like Charles Cross had 5 penalties, but he actually had a good night in the actual blocking department. What is more translatable there? Is he going to be having 5 penalties a night? Probably not. He might be a guy that's prone to them, but I take more stock in him really not giving up any significant pressures in the first half. So Lucas also looked good. That's how I view this, at least the offense. Even if some of those guys don't have good hands on the wide receiver depth chart, they're not going to have a 5-4 drop, however strict or lenient you want to be to the receivers. They're not going to have that many drops in the first half, especially when DK, Tyler, Goodwin are out there. So, like, I don't know. That's my view of the offense. I'm not going to sit here and say it like superficially it was all good and dandy. It was some serious problems that they have to work through, but I'm not as depressed as some people are by it. If it happens again next week, then okay, yeah, hit the panic button. What the hell is going on? What's going on with the coaching, the messaging, etc.? Sure, but all right, I've rambled enough. You guys go ahead.
Ty.
Yeah, I thought Geno was fine. I thought he was good at times. I thought he was great at times. Some of the throws were very impressive. The one that Swain dropped, the one to Penny Hart, I thought those were very, very good throws. And I felt like for the most part, aside from maybe his last 2 drives or so, none of this really fell on Geno's shoulders. And then he kind of regressed towards the last couple drives there, but overall I walked away from this feeling fine about Geno. We'll see what's up with his knee and everything, but
he's bruised his knee. It's
yeah.
I think it'll be fine. Pete Carroll said it's a bursa. I don't know what the hell that means, but then he clarified that's a bruised knee. So
got ya. So I assume that won't impact him long term here in terms of like next week and how they want to do things. The thing that I walked away from this is like, when the COVID diagnosis for Drew came down the other day, it was like, okay, Geno won the job. Probably that's what that means. Now, yeah, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case now, though. I think it's up in the air still. As long as Drew can actually get back, be healthy enough to play next week.
Yeah. Matty?
I don't know, man. Like, it's like Pete Carroll said, like we're not under the impression, none of us are, that Geno can be a guy who is going to be the dude in the offense like Mahomes, right? I mean, that would just be ridiculous. Right. It's like Pete Carroll said, they needed to help him. Like, they needed to make plays around him too. Mm-hmm. The offensive line had a slightly tougher time. We mentioned how the Steelers aren't a very good run defense, and the Bears seem to get after it up front a bit more. And every run wasn't going for 4 yards a pop. Actually, I can get up some stats of how Seattle got along there. But
by the way, I don't know how you guys feel, but I'd be cool if I never had to watch Freddie Swain play football again. Like,
He's not
especially
having a
punt
good.
returns. Like,
Yeah, man. That I feel bad for him because, I mean, he may not make the team. And last year, I thought like he was a serviceable wide receiver 4 or whatever.
yeah,
This feels like a regression.
yeah, and he's
And
like he's just useless in the punt return game. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't move at all.
And Cade Johnson, although he muffed the punt, right, or the kickoff.
Yeah,
I
he
forget-
muffed
I
the punt. Yeah.
I was gonna say it looks
yeah.
like he's usurping him. Maybe it might be him and Penny Hart, but then like he muffed the punt. So
Yeah,
I'm sure they're getting cussed out by God, who's a special teams coach?
Larry Izzo.
Izzo, yeah, Izzo. I'm sure they're all getting cussed out by Izzo right now.
And what we should mention here is
Still 5 yards per carry, by the way.
the receive. I've just seen that 5.1 yards per
Probably
carry.
aided by a 33-yard run by.
I think that's mainly fake because 33-yard run, and then the other runs were like passing down stuff, like the draw run, popping, whatever. But we should talk about they're throwing to receivers like Swain, who's supposed to be the best one, but he's not having a good time of it at the moment. Penny Hart, and then Bo Melton. That's the receiving group, which is bad. They're straight bad. Usually they'd expect to have had at least one of Eskridge or Goodwin there, which suddenly gets it a bit juicier. And obviously Metcalf and Lockett aren't out there. Same applies for the run game, where you've got Travis Homer as the lead back. Same applies for special teams as well, where like Ballore ain't playing, the special teams captain, the stalwart. And special teams, they do have an issue, but thankfully that's an area you can address via cut downs. You can scour the league, you can grind that special teams tape, and you'll find some guy who can run fast and is actually can like track a near hip and not over pursue dramatically to one side, which Iggy was doing. But just because we haven't got onto the defense yet, and just to put a bow really on the offensive discussion, like I'd actually think we'll watch the tape and we'll come away with very similar stuff to what we said about the Steelers game, and that I think Geno probably took what he played it exactly how he should have done. He was just in an absolutely ridiculously bad situation. I said at halftime, I gave him 5 out of 10. Like, and I'm very big on out of 10 ratings being, if it's 5 out of 10, that's average. Like, I hate it when people go, "Oh, it was all right, I'll give it 7 out of 10." No, what are you doing? I also get really annoyed when people are like, "Oh, it was a 7.5 out of 10," because really what they're saying is they want to rate things out of 100 and be like 75 out of 100. If you're going to do it out of 10, do it out of 10. And I think he is a 5 out of 10. I could probably be talked into 4 out of 10 or 6 out of 10. And after watching the tape, I will probably land on probably one of those numbers to actually take a stance rather than just saying he's bang average.
That's fair.
But I really do think we'll watch it back and be like, wow, those 2 throws are really nice, and wow, he was not helped. And the touch on the dig stuff as well, like, again, he's been working with the ones. He's been working with Lockett and Metcalf primarily. He's only just got in with the 2s, so he won't have the chemistry with these guys, and he's thrown to.
Also, sorry, really quick. Another reason why I feel bad for Swain is because I'm sure I can't really see with the broadcast, but I suspect the tape will show that Swain also ran a really good route.
Yeah,
and then to drop it, like he might have had issue tracking the ball because the fact that he threw it over a defender. There might have been a tracking issue because, I mean, I don't know how a lot of receivers make those throws, but every week in the NFL, there are big dig routes thrown over multiple hands reaching out for the ball at every level of the field before it's caught. So those are big time throws, and it's definitely something they're trying to have be a fixture of their drop back game. So, I think that's fair, Matty. I think that superficially what I saw off of the broadcast, I think that's why I settled on good. And I'm really I admit that I'm really maybe overemphasizing. The tape will prove if it's over or regular emphasizing all the drops and the penalties, putting them in like really bad game states that are really difficult to succeed in. But I could very well what will determine how he played though is of course like the stuff you need the tape to even know. Is he reading the play out correctly? Is he getting to the right spot? Is anything open? What is he doing when it's not open? Like, you know what I mean? Like actual playing the position. Superficially, all I saw were when the ball was coming out, for the most part, it should have been caught. Then there were plays where he tried to extend or scrambled. My question then is, did he miss something that was open, or was the play covered up? And if it was covered up, why was it covered? You know what I'm saying? Right. I don't know. It's just I even if I think he was less than good, I still foresee the floor from that game being average. I just can't fathom, where he's making the throws that he did make. Like you can't. I don't know.
I feel like there was more good than bad from this performance for him. Real quick, another thing that we need to mention here: Damian Lewis, who got hurt, and they brought the air cast out for. Seems like he actually avoided a pretty gnarly injury, and it's I think a high ankle sprain is what Pete said.
It was a lateral ankle sprain.
Lateral ankle sprain,
and he was basically treating it as a miracle. So that's amazing news.
Yeah. Hopefully he's not out for too long. I mean, there's been I know nothing about ankle sprains. I know nothing about anything, but there's been some history with ankle sprains where the guys come back and they don't look anywhere near as athletic as they did prior. Like I'm thinking even LJ Collier, who wasn't exactly the sparkiest athlete when he seemed more athletic in college than he did when his first year NFL action. And it seemed like he got fully healthy till after. And then you could say the same thing for Rasheem Green, his rookie year. When he sprained his ankle, he came back later that regular season and he looked 2/3 as fast as he did in that preceding preseason. So like, I don't know. I hope he's good to go. If not, obviously the plan was Gabe Jackson's your right guard and Phil Haynes is your left guard. And Phil, I think, had a decent game. He might have been better in protection than he was in run blocking, but I did see some movement from him. But I think they'll be okay with those two if Lewis can't get back in time. But Lewis looked really good against the Steelers, again, as did everybody. But I was hoping he got hurt early. I was watching to see how he looked when I rewatched the game because I recorded it. Like speed running, and he actually was moving people just like he was against the Steelers. So, maybe it's not enough reps to really say anything, but man, you don't want to lose him. So,
yeah.
And hey, Austin Blythe looked good. So, I don't know. We'll watch the tape. Do we want to transition to defense?
Well, real quick, the left guard situation. If Lewis can't, he won't play against the Cowboys anyway, I don't think. Although there is a weird philosophical thing, not just for offensive line, but for everyone we still haven't seen the ones really properly. Metcalf played 3 snaps today. How much do you want to play the ones to try and get Drew in that competition mindset and competition opportunity, but also Geno. But anyway, Lewis, given what you've said, Griffin, I'd be interested in how different a lateral one is to a high one. I don't know. But
a high ankle sprain is about like a 6 to 8 week thing. So
that's a death sentence.
Hopefully this is.
It sounded better, but then they were operating off a.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll probably find out more Monday-ish. So we'll see. But I would suspect that even if he is relatively okay, we probably won't see him in Dallas, even with the whole we need to see the ones thing. I think any sort of ankle sprain, and again, hashtag not medical advice, but I don't know if he'll be able to get back for week 1, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Now defense.
Well, just the depth behind is Greg Ireland and Jake Curhan, who are converted tackles. So currently Haynes or whoever misses
Fuller,
out,
maybe.
Shamarius Gilmore.
Maybe. Yeah, but before Lewis was out, you had Haynes or Jackson or Lewis as the extra guy, which is crazy depth. Anyway, defense.
Yeah, defense.
Defense.
Was I admit did not watch the second half defense at all. Actually, I didn't watch any of the second half. I don't even know how Jake Eason played.
I literally watched She-Hulk as
I
soon
was-
as I
I
saw
was-
Jacob Eason.
Yeah, I in the second half, I rewatched the first half, and then I had to go walk my dogs because they were angry.
Yeah.
They needed to go out. Maddie looks dead inside. So here's my deal. I'll hopefully, how do I? So like the things that were really bad were sourced to players that I don't think are in the plans to play at all in the regular season, unless in blowouts. The only guy that is actually going to factors to play significant snaps is someone's taking a screenshot.
Yeah, you're not sneaky. We can all hear you taking screenshots, Ty. Like, you need to figure out. You're not a very good spy. You've been caught.
The only guy that played significant snaps that we can assume will have some sort of a role in the regular season that played really poorly, I think, is Marquise Blair. Don't know what was going on there, at least at the tackle point. I mean, for all we know, again, as the saying goes, until we get the tape, he might have done some things in coverage that just don't show up on the broadcast. And like, okay, he's just got to wrap up better, right? Like, we might cool our jets if we watch the tape. Also, we may not. We might say, oh, he was bad everywhere. You know what I mean? But even then, he's still not the starter. And when Jamal Adams is playing that overhang nickel star role, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't have to be Blair as the other deep safety. It could be Josh Jones, who seemed on broadcast to be active and make plays. You know, it could also be Ryan Neal when he gets healthy. Like that doesn't have to be a terrible thing. The edge rush, the interior rush continues to be like alive, like active. It wasn't dominant, but it was there. Like Alton Robinson had some good rushes. Darrell Taylor had some good rushes. And then I think I saw Shelby Harris at the bull rush, and Puna Ford just kind of continues to be who he is as a pass rusher. He gets some push. Quentin Jefferson was active. I don't remember what Miles Adams did. He had the one cleanup sack, but like for the people that are actually going to be playing hundreds of snaps in the regular season, we didn't see anything alarming. It was just probably Blair. And then Maddie, please comment on the people I already spoke about, but Kobe Bryant had a solid game, didn't he?
He did. He was all right. He had a nice pass breakup after a bad press footwork, but he was down at the goal line, so step kick. He was a bit slow getting out there with the fade, but he knew it was a fade because it was down at the goal line. Got his pass breakup. He looked competitive, good movement skills. I think also his performance was possibly accentuated given the fact that Coleman looked a bit off his game / those catches beneath Coleman's zone, yeah. But like also, you know, it's kind of like make a play. And then the special teams kerfuffle or whatever you want to call it was just a bit awkward.
Horrific. That was real bad.
But like Bryant missed a tackle and had a bad pursuit angle on like a screen into the flat where Seattle still got off the field, but it's like you kind of want him to make the play there as a nickel. So I would say it's all up in the open, the nickel competition still. I think they should possibly mix in Bryant, you know, maybe do like a quarter of the competition. I'd be very much open to that. And then rest of the defense, I don't really have anything to say. That it's going to look bad. Like they're running a 4-2-5 basically. It's going to look bad when you don't have any of the secondary.
Yeah.
And it's going to look bad when you don't have Jordan Brooks, who's basically the guy who allows you to do a lot of this stuff.
Right.
And it's going to look really bad when you don't have your best big pluggers because you can't stop the run as well.
Yeah.
So when Lewis Riddick made a big point about 20 guys not dressing, like I think most of that was probably on the defense, and I mean the defense just looked awful. And some of these linebackers, the depth pieces, I don't want to be mean, but I don't know what they had. I don't know how they're in the NFL.
Yeah. So like, if one of Brooks or Barton gets hurt at any point, they absolutely have to be a dime team somehow. That's where bring on the memes, actually put Jamal Adams at linebacker, like actually do that. Be a big dime team. Because I don't want to see, the only guy that actually looks like he knows how to tackle is Tanner Muse, but then he also can't run. So
Well, he can run. But he can only run in a straight line. If he has to change direction,
I saw him trying to adapt his angle. I was like, oh no.
Pete, this is Tanner Muse. His deficiency is he can't run.
Yeah.
God, I feel so. I don't feel great saying that about human beings because they've worked very hard to get to this point, and at one point in their lives, were probably dominant football players. It's just, welcome to the show. It's also a lot of these guys like first NFL action, right? Like, even if they have like, oh, that's the guy that can stick on a roster for a couple of years, you're gonna have deer in the headlight moments, a little bit. So to their credit, but yeah, so I know it seems kind of a little too like sunshine and rainbows. You got to indulge in the pessimism a little bit. I think objectively speaking, though, we didn't see horrific things.
Do you guys have that song "Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows"?
Do we have it? I'm sure it
actually might be a song.
Have it? Like America just doesn't get certain songs or something. Like music isn't like, I don't know.
You are going through a cultural war at the moment, it seems.
That's the history of America, unfortunately.
Yep.
Yeah.
By Leslie Gore.
So anyway, like
I love how we didn't even answer his question.
Yeah. Anyways, we just have to hope that, like, hey, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs, Burns, Sidney Jones, Woolen and Bryant, Burks and Barton can't get hurt, and then we'll go from there.
And also, Ken Norton Jr. did nothing wrong. He really didn't. So, like, what was he meant to do? Like,
this defense has the same inherent issues schematically as it did last year. It's just we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Ken Norton Jr.'s tenure was I think marked by solving problems presented by the precise personnel combinations he had. And now they're on the other end of that stick. Now that they have enough personnel diversity that instead of solving problems, they can kind of attack things as they want to.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want to see the ones out there. Also, like you said, they're running 4-2-5. It's a very vanilla scheme for them. Like, they only have a couple of base calls within each front, and then a couple of complementary calls right now, or supplementary calls. You kind of see the the foundation being laid, and then you can see where more specific stuff would kind of filter in, right? If it was a real game, but like they're not playing they're playing. I don't think they played a single snap of their penny package, which is nickel bear, which was Falcon last year.
We haven't seen that in the preseason.
We haven't seen that at all, and that is going to factor. In fact, I suspect we see a lot of it against the Broncos week 1, which we can save for that preview in a couple of weeks. But yeah, like, this is still right. I mean, honestly, I just want to see the edge rushers providing edge rush, and for the most part, nothing dominant, but there's a lot more life there than there was last year. Mm-hmm. So everything else is like, tackle and chew out the bottom 30 of the roster however you need to in practice this week. And
no, Pete straight up said he's like, if guys can't learn how to tackle, they won't be here anymore. Like,
and Ty, you mentioned before we recorded, he's probably talking to Marquise Blair right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Blair was awful tonight. Like, truly awful. Also had like a head-to-head, helmet-to-helmet penalty as well in the red zone. Like, that for sure pissed Pete off. And the way that Pete was talking tonight, I mean, it's very rare that we hear Pete talking as candidly as he did tonight about guys and just about like the reality of the situation. Because, typically, because he's kind of got that dad mentality, right? Where he doesn't want to let anyone go. Yeah. He often comes off, like that, right? And not a lot of NFL coaches do. Today, he just came off like, no,
that's not good enough.
This sucks. This is bad. Like,
because he's usually optimistic, like you said.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a pretty significant roster churn, like towards the bottom end of the roster.
Good
over
call.
the next couple
Good call.
weeks.
They did it
Like,
back in the day, and
Yeah.
they've got to do that. And
I mean,
there
like
will be opportunities
Witherspoon
to
was
do
a
that.
surprise trade last year, right? But so like, yeah, Ty, when you said he's angry, I think if we're assuming he's talking about Blair, which he definitely, even if he wasn't specifically pointing him out, he still applies to that
He's
statement.
definitely in that group.
Yeah. He's probably disappointed too, because Blair is a guy that we know that they like, and beyond like where they like all their guys. Like every year when Peter King or Albert Breer and other national reporters go to visit camps, and then they say, who's a guy to look for? They're saying whoever they talked to off the record said is looking really good in camp. And every year, multiple people have said Marquise Blair.
Even today, and Lewis Riddick was like, this guy was one of the best DBs until he went through injury stuff. Like
that means that like the coaches are feeding them that, and they're saying that because
Yeah.
they believe that internally, whether they're right or wrong or whatever, that's what they think. Like, so they're probably going like, what the hell has happened tonight? What is this?
Right.
Now, but it's kind of funny. Things come full circle. Matt, you did a scouting report on Marquise Blair way back when he was coming out of Utah, and like, what was the main thing you mentioned was tackling in the flat, right? Like coming downhill on things and just throwing.
he liked to hit, but like
He didn't wrap
he's
up.
slim frame. He can't wrap up. He never went eyes through the thighs. He was always just bouncing out of stuff, and to get low, he plays quite high. To get low, he does what happened today, where he lowers his head to lower his target, and then you end up with helmet to helmet.
So I'm not going to say the guys that missed tackles today are good tacklers, but let's add all this up. Some horrible drops from receivers. Some of them was just really good defense. Like the one to Derek Young, I think we'd call a drop, but like that was really tightly covered. So I'm not being too critical, but we got some drops from receivers. We have like 7 or 8 O-line penalties through 4 quarters. And then we have some of the worst tackling we've seen and some of the worst special teams we've ever seen in a preseason game or on Lumen Field. Is this just like rookies during the headlights first game at home in front of a crowd, and they know they're on prime time?
Did you just mention the short week? I mean, it is pretty crazy.
Short week too. That's a good point.
It's pretty crazy coming from Pittsburgh on a Saturday night and then flying back with COVID. You're preparing for Drew to be the starter, then he goes off, so that's got you out of whack a bit. Then you maybe some of the Seahawks on the field today would have tested positive for COVID. You don't know how Drew's flown on the team plane. Man. I know flying's supposed to be all right even with COVID if everyone. But I doubt, they'll
I hadn't thought about that. That's a great
together,
point.
and so there's maybe.
Well, that's what we were talking about.
What
last night's episode? Like, what if Geno gets COVID? Right? Like, what happens at that point? Like, it doesn't seem like that would be the end of it. So yeah, like Matty's saying, right? Like maybe some of these guys were playing with COVID as well, and that plays a role. And like you were saying as well, like, yeah, this is first NFL game action at home for a lot of these dudes. Like, I'm sure that impacts guys mentally as well. So, there's definitely like outside factors that are playing into it, but, and I guess the good news as well, to go along with that is the fact that not a lot of the starters actually suited up in this game. So a lot of these guys that you're seeing mess up are, hopefully not going to be playing meaningful snaps for you this year, or at least a lot of meaningful snaps for you. So, I don't feel like too bad about this game, but it was bad. And I feel like we're going to see, honestly, at this point, I'd be pretty stunned if we didn't see significant changes towards the bottom of the roster.
Yeah,
we got a nice little shot of John Schneider working on an iPad, which felt kind of ominous.
The new meme.
Yeah, it might be one of the more active. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but I'd be curious every final roster cut down, if you totaled up how many guys they ended up signing to the 53 and or practice squad that were on other 90-man rosters or 85-man rosters, whatever it is. And if you rank them every year, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the most, like one of the highest numbers of total guys they bring in from other clubs, because like they need an emergency, oh shit, linebacker. Like, oh God, we need a guy that's over 230 pounds that can actually tackle somebody. You know what I mean? Like, We need special teamers. Like they literally signed a backup linebacker, not even to be a backup linebacker, but to be a special teamer, and he didn't seem to have a good day teaming specially. So like
he couldn't align right on defense, so I don't know what's going on there. But anyway,
yeah. So let's regroup, watch the tape, and
we have to watch the tape.
Hope for a spirited.
So just
Cowboys game.
It was 13 penalties for 92 yards, which
absurd.
Maybe the tape will show us that the Seahawks were actually really good, but the Bears were just that much better.
Maybe. Nice cope.
Maybe
so 2 positives.
I'm at stage 7 now, by the way.
Right.
I'm at acceptance.
2 positives. Abraham Lucas looked dominant. Even on the play that Lewis got hurt, he was pancaking a guy on the backside of zone, like 7 yards down the field. Absolutely nasty. And he got beat around the edge, but like Orlovsky said, he probably should have just stepped up in the pocket there, Eason. I don't think that was really on Lucas. So Lucas had, I think, another good game, even though the offensive line wasn't quite as dominant this game. And then the other positive, Miles Adams had a really nice sack and I think was really disruptive again. And he was playing late still. So generally, still on the fringes, which you expect given how much depth they have in that interior defensive line room. That being said, ALJ Collier is still out. Pete Carroll said he's still a while off. Adams should make the roster. Like he really should. I'm excited to watch his tape back again. And I'm happy for him. And did we talk about Charles Cross struggling? That's not a positive to end on, but
we didn't really.
That just seems like inexperience. Like 3 false starts, 1 holding penalty. They seem to have a bit more.
He did have a good block on Robert Quinn on the throw
exactly.
to Swain.
So there was ups and downs. I think he struggled a bit with like a guy who was just straight up snap jumping, basically. And I think they were trying to play around with their cadence a bit, which something Carroll mentioned the cadence in the press conference, but I think they were trying to stop the snap jumping. And I think, if someone's snap jumping, then you start trying to snap jump a bit as a tackle. And I think that's what was going on and sort of got in his own head a bit. So not something to be concerned about. That's why he's playing in the preseason, gain that kind of experience. And I'm sure it'll be fine. I don't think it's going to be like a Jermaine Ifedi situation, but we'll see, I guess. Yeah. So finally, JJAW. We have new information on JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
I
was right.
But the problem is,
we should have deferred you from the jump. What were we thinking?
I was right in the sense that I said that, if he was Spanish, then it should be Arcega. And he is Spanish, which is an absolute shocker, but that's cool. Really cool. I should have been supporting my fellow European. But the problem is we've received conflicting information. So someone in the comments of the YouTube said, this was JDMB017 said, no, it's Arcega or Arcega, but not Arcega. Spain can't facepalm. Spain can't even Spanish properly. The th in Barcelona had to have been a mispronunciation by someone with a lisp.
Interesting.
That morphed into a group conscious commitment to sound out th out of s. It's like how the same word can be pronounced differently depending what area of English-speaking territory.
Right. I mean, like, is this just dialect dependent? Like, there's like 50 Italian languages.
Maybe.
Like it makes sense that there are different dialects and
Arcega.
So just because one person would say Arcega, it's still okay for us to say Arcega.
And he is from Zaragoza, which I think is Zaragoza, which is very
Isn't the ultimate decider here of how to pronounce JJAW's last name up to JJAW though? Like, should we defer to what he says?
Big fan of that. Big fan of that.
Yeah.
And,
so I was going off of how Stanford or like anyone that would commentate Stanford games would do
That
it
makes
because I
sense.
assume that they have a pronunciation guide.
Yes, but
that makes
and indeed oh no, another Spanish pronunciation. El
Mm.
Jefe replied to the
Jefe.
Seattle Overload Twitter account at Seattle Overload, follow it, saying Ty is right. JJAW has stated his name is pronounced Arthega. So there you go.
There we go.
So,
Arthega Whiteside.
and Arthega Whiteside almost hauled in a nice deep shot as we predicted from
Now-
Jacob Eason, but the ground knocked it out.
Yeah.
That was probably the toughest catch you can.
Guys,
make
not to complicate things, but I am going to contend that the E's in Whiteside are long E's. Or actually they're accented, so it's actually White Side. So we're correct on the Arthega part, but then we got to get the the Anglican half of his last name
Okay.
correct. So
Arthega Wate Sade.
it's actually French. Yeah, is what I'm saying. It's not.
Yeah. Or maybe it's like, you know how like Sade is actually pronounced Sade, so maybe it's like Wate Shade.
You know, we'll look at the tape. We'll get back to you guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let us know in the comments how badly we're coping through all this. Honestly, I don't feel like I'm coping. Maybe that's the sign of a deluded person.
Well, the best thing
I'm
about tape
accentuating
watching is cope, is literal cope, because you're just rewatching the same thing and talking yourself into it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we don't know. We'll probably be a bit longer back next time. I mean, tape will probably get watched by Monday, Tuesday, so maybe we'll have a podcast out on Thursday, possibly, or maybe Friday, a sort of tape review.
When's the
Dallas
game?
preview.
Saturday?
Saturday. So
Okay.
maybe we'll aim for Thursday, record Wednesday. But until that point, please do retweet, like, keep supporting the podcast in your good ways. We appreciate you, and keep your heads up. They still have nice uniforms, and
And Drew Woo's
Pete
coming
Carroll
back.
looks good. I really like that Seahawks t-shirt that Pete Carroll wears at the moment. It looks clean on him. Very nice.
I've always wanted that long sleeve shirt that he's always worn with just like the Seahawk logo. I've never been able to find one for myself.
Yeah, they have like special stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
the stuff Nike's not given to peasants. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Bye, guys.
Peace out.
GG's. Peace.